One of the questions that I have for each of you, I know, Ashley, you have a character named Susie Q. Paparazzi, who is a master sleuth. I'm kind of curious how you got into this business of writing mysteries. I mean, you talk about other things that you've done in the past and how this isn't your first book. Eric, I've been a journalist in the past. Ashley, you've got a degree in journalism. Yep, and
so
have
was
done
I.
a number of things. And so is that what it takes? Do you have to be a journalist?
Well, I think it helps. For one, it helps you to cut to the chase. You know, especially in a mystery, you really have to get things going. It has to be kind of action-packed, at least these kinds of mysteries. And being a journalist helps you to really get down to the brass tacks. But also, in my case, it was many years of writing and not getting published, and then wanting to see if someone will actually pay for my work, my writing work. And so it was that sort of situation. I think I'll get into this, and to prove to myself that my work is valuable enough to pay for. So, and then it did the job for about 8 years.
But you started off writing medieval histories.
It was just historical
fiction,
right? And most of them were set in the medieval period, but historical fiction, yes, and about 10 years worth. And even with an agent or two, it was a difficult row to hoe. I was told after reading, I think in the Publishers Weekly, that the historical novel was dead. This is about 10 years ago. So I thought, well, gosh, this is what I want to do. But it was something I wanted to do. I had a deep love of history, of the medieval period particularly, a lot of research in my pocket, and I wanted to write. And when it was recommended to me by a former agent to maybe switch to mystery, that a historical mystery was a better market, then I did more research and got into that and joined Sisters in Crime, which helped me. I'm absolutely sure it helped me get published.
What's the real difference between the history and the mystery? I mean, I think about a book like Name of the Rose.
Well, that is a mystery.
It is,
it is a historical
but
mystery. But there are many historical novels out there that are just about famous and interesting people of the past. There are a million books about Anne Boleyn,
right.
Henry VIII, and that. And it's just a story about a different angle about their lives without a particular mystery or a detective involved in it. There could be a mystery, but not a detective. So this is a traditional with a detective, a body, and something needs to be solved, and and everything sort of comes out okay at the end.
So, Eric, we know that you started off as a journalist in these places, right? But was that really how you started, or did you have a love of mysteries that?
I'd always loved reading mysteries and crime novels and thrillers. My books, I guess, are not traditional mysteries, and there's very little whodunit aspect to them. I describe them more as don't do it's. They tend to deal with an existing problem, and this guy is trying to help people who are caught up in it or resolve the issues that already exist. And there's dead bodies and things like in most mysteries, but there's no big reveal at the end necessarily. And they were just stories that I loved, having lived in Asia, and I wanted to tell in a way that gave me more free rein to tell them the way I wanted to, which in a way caught me up short, because after years of working as a journalist and being able to rely on the thing that the truth is stranger than fiction, which it often really is. As a journalist, if you do your homework, you interview the right people, you come together with all the facts, oftentimes you don't understand why something happened. People went crazy or something stupid occurred. And your reader, if you've done your job, understands that and says, boy, that's weird, but truth is stranger than fiction. You can't get away with that in fiction. In novels, you need to really make people's motivations clear, and you need to make why things happen clear. Readers lose patience with it. And for me, at least, transitioning from journalism to fiction, that was the hardest single thing, is not falling back on, isn't that peculiar? Instead being able to come up with reasons for things to happen and backstory that made sense out of what was going on currently and
it's
things like that.
Your particular perspective to the facts, or the so-called facts of the story. which changes everything.
Yeah, a lot.
How did you come up with your protagonist, with your character, Ashley?
Well, I kind of went at it backwards from Jerry. I started out as a journalist, much like Eric, but I knew I wanted to write books. And so I wanted to eat too. And so I needed to find a way to pay the rent and buy groceries. And so I thought, well, this will be a way to transition. I'll start out in the nonfiction and I can transition. And it's been really helpful. That's how I was able to write the Susie Q books. That took quite a bit of research. She is a paparazza in Los Angeles. And that was the single hardest interview I've ever had to get. Even working in newspapers, I covered 9/11, I covered the contentious 2000 presidential election. I could pick up the phone and call the mayor. You can't pick up the phone and call a paparazza, I discovered. They don't take your calls. They're not interested in talking to you. So it took me a year to get one paparazza to talk to me. And finally did, and it was fascinating. It really was.
What did you learn?
I learned mostly that it's a two-way street. That the celebrities are as involved in creating these situations and creating these photos as the photographers are, and they often work together. It's not uncommon for a celebrity's assistant to call the photographers. They have their phone numbers, and they call them up and say, I'm going to be at X place at 7 o'clock. And everyone gets together and does that. There is a stretch of Melrose Avenue called Paparazzi Row. And that's where most paparazzi spend most of their time. And they cruise up and down the street, and if you're a celebrity and you have a movie coming out, or if you have an album coming out, you show up there to get your picture taken to promote your movie or your new dress line or whatever it is. And it works for them, it works for the photographer, everyone is happy most of the time. There's certainly situations where that gets out of hand, but most of the time it really works well for everyone, and it was surprising to see how hand in hand they really do work.
That's fascinating.
It
That's
is,
really
it really is. There's actually a store near Paparazzi Row that's partially owned by a company who owns one of these agencies.
Wow.
It's really incestuous.
But that makes sense why suddenly everybody seems to be appearing at, the same restaurants all the time
Yes,
too.
the Ivy
Same
is on
restaurants,
Paparazzi Row for a
Right.
reason.
Right, exactly. That's great. That's great. Well, I think we're going to take a short break at this point, if that's possible. And when we're back, we'll be talking further with Jerry Westerson, with Eric Stone, and with Ashley Ream. Welcome back to Our Town, Pasadena. We're here tonight speaking with mystery writers, trying to find out who done it or don't do that, depending on the situation. And one of the questions that I have, we've had folks on the show in the past who are writers and who are talking about the creative process, what's involved in the creative process. And so that's the question that I have for each of you in terms of what the degree of research is that you do. How long does it take? All of that. Jerry, how long does it take you to write one of these incredibly intense and very historically accurate novels?
Medieval noir.
Mysteries, right. Medieval noir.
well-
I love that. With a very, what is it? With a virile hero.
A virile hero.
I love
Try to
that.
say that
A
3
virile
times
hero,
fast.
yeah.
Well, naturally there's a lot of research. I mean, you have to do the research to get the medieval authenticity right, because there are many, many readers who like only historical fiction, historical mysteries, and they read that because they like immersing themselves in a different time and a different place, and a lot of them know their history very well. And so you have to get it right, or you're going to lose credibility with them. So there's a lot of pre-research. I have a lot in my pocket already after years of writing other books. So the 14th century in England is pretty, I have that down pretty well. But there's always something you have to research. In Serpent and the Thorns, it's archery. That archery plays a big role in that particular book, and so there's a lot of archery. There's research on particular characters, because there are peripheral characters who are real people who did exist, and you have to do the research on them and get it right. You can't just make up, things about them. So there's a lot of initial research. I like to start with about a month to 3 months of just research of things I have to do.
That's a lot.
But usually I cut that down to a month, because while I'm writing, and it takes about 9 months for me to finish a book, I'm doing research all along. You know, I come to a point where I think, oh, well, is that right or is that not? So then I have to go and research it. A lot of times I have books on my shelves where I could pull them down and look. A lot of times I will have to go to a university library or go online to find an archive in England, somebody who will talk to me about what I need to know. And they're very generous about that.
That's really it's
Internet
really
is great for that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not so much if you're just looking for something and expect Wikipedia to give you all the answers. You have to really make sure that you're on the right sort of website with the right sort of information, the right sort of bibliography, because you can get a lot of bad information on the internet.